This is actually two questions in one. It's concerning, Alex's rather positive coverage of the upcoming update for Starfield. First question from Jonathan Hamilton. In light of Alex's video about Starfield's beta patch, is that interviewer from Bloomberg Technology vindicated for asking Todd Howard why the game wasn't optimized? And this question from some guy person again regarding the Starfield performance fixes. How on earth did they not launch with some of these changes? Did someone just compile the game without a quote unquote use underscore multi-threading flag or something? Also, why is it taking so long for Bethesda to add in features that modders made within a week of the game coming out? Starfield was in development for countless years and nobody really had the 4 hours it took to put DLSS or an FOV slider in the game. I feel Alex's work just raises more questions than answers here. Thanks, guys. So, Alex, let's tackle these two questions. First of all, let's start with the Bloomberg one.
I would say the question was ill-posed. The game was obviously optimized for something, and he would never say no. The question should have been, and to actually have made it a productive answer would have been, should we expect performance enhancements and optimizations and patches over time over launch? Which is the real question you're actually interested in. Are you going to keep working on the game? Instead of just being like the, I don't know, what's the word, like performative, angry consumer at launch. And I think that is the interesting question, and that one would have gotten a better answer from Todd Howard or anyone who was answering questions there. So I still think it wasn't a good question, and I described it at launch. It was, if you are on an AMD GPU, you had a experience that I would have expected. Just was everything else that wasn't great. Regarding the other things, I think they didn't forget to export it with the flags. I think that's a famous example from, is that Skyrim? Or is it Oblivion? There is some sort of export thing. I forget what it is, and it came with, I forget what exactly it is. Someone in the audience will type a very long extended commentary about it, but it has to do with one of those games and the exported EXE.
I mean, thinking of those games, nothing beats the Skyrim intro sequence at high frame rates.
Yeah, that one's...
That's kind of wacky, isn't it?
I love that still exists.
That's kind of so embarrassing.
They also fixed it in the VR version of Skyrim, by the way, which does run at high frame rates, so...
Well, it's good they did that. But here, it's still, once again, 165 FPS, a little bit arbitrary in this game. I would say there's two things that need to happen with a real game, and obviously there's like QA time to make sure that a modder can just add in DLSS, and they don't have to care if it breaks anything in the game over a certain amount of time. It really didn't at all. And that might have just been happenstance. It could have actually, at some endpoint in the game, there's a shader on screen that totally messes up if you have DLSS on. It didn't seem to actually occur based upon the mod. And I think it's a matter of just like looking at insight, like having an insight at an earlier stage of production as to what people want for user experience in your game. And you look at like the market of other games out there that have it, and that's when you start making your decisions. Like you shouldn't make your decisions in like a bubble where you're not looking out there and seeing what the best of the best are doing in the user experience space. You shouldn't do this as well. You shouldn't just be in a bubble, for example, regarding not user experience. I always forget this word, accessibility. You should be looking at what the best practices are for accessibility. And in this case, it feels like if you don't do those things earlier in the project, getting them in there at the end is going to be harder because you don't know, there's like unforeseen things that could happen since you never took care of to actually implement them earlier on in the project. FOV slider, I think, would fall into that category. People could adjust it maybe in the INI, but it doesn't mean that it worked for the entire game. Maybe it broke things because they didn't maybe think about it earlier in the process, hence why it wasn't a slider in the game. Same with DLSS. Once again, like I think anyone really looking at the PC market should have been like, we really should have a DLSS in here, people. But maybe since that wasn't part of the thought process early on in the game, I feel like they couldn't just add it in immediately the same way a modder could have added it in. So I'm not trying to excuse anything there, but I think there's like probably very good logical reasons why it is the way it is. It doesn't make it better, but I think it's like it's just all about like caring about user experience earlier on in the project's development time and not in like the last couple, I don't know, months or whatever. And there's still some things that really need change in the game. I don't understand. So there's this weird thing they added in the brightness slider, and the brightness slider has a preview image. I didn't talk about it in the video because it didn't feel like very important stuff. They made a preview image for the brightness slider, but all the other options don't have preview images. So
you kind of need one for a brightness slider.
Yeah, but like also like you turn on like stuff like the shadow setting, you don't really know what it does necessarily. Like you can guess, but like these are things that just make the game so much easier.
I get what you're saying, because even just still images.
Yeah, and they're not hard to mock up. Like I do them over the course of a week for a video. I make those things, and I'm an amateur. So it feels like in the professional context, it could be way better. And I assume they're going to do all those things that I said, because I think they're listening to the audience. They added in DLSS, they added in FOV, they did something with HDR. Frame gen's there even before FSR 3, which is like, you don't expect that at all.
Yeah, it's a bit baffling.
It's very funny, but so they're going to work on it. It's going to get better. There's going to be the Game of the Year version of it in like a year, and it's going to be a much better game at that point in time. Okay.
Well, I think my quick input on this is that the Bloomberg question guy, it was just basically what did he expect to get from that question. Mm-hmm. A headline maybe, I don't know, but there wasn't any conceivable scenario where Todd Howard was going to say, you got a point.
I think it was pulled from audience questions, and the guy reading the question didn't actually understand what it meant. I would say.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think when he asks that, I don't think he actually understands what the implication of saying, why is your game not optimized, actually is.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. In terms of the other stuff, it's just a case of, why drip feed features into various releases when you can basically say, right, I'm going to get a new version of Starfield out by X, by a certain date, and it's going to have all of these features. Just roll up all of the features into one patch, and then release that, as opposed to sort of just doing it piecemeal. It's kind of the way things work on major updates, and I think this would qualify as a major update. Really big. And secondly, there's obviously a modder might take 4 hours to add in DLSS, but somebody somewhere in the official realm needs to do waves of QA passes on it to make sure it works, and that is not 4 hours work. Which I think is what Alex was saying anyway. Have you got anything to add to that, John?
No, not really. I mean, I did want to ask Alex, though, did they include native HDR support yet?
It's auto HDR.
It's still auto HDR. Which auto HDR can do an awesome job, but it doesn't. I don't think it does a great job in this case. So
it's because the base color grading and the base temperature of like the image is it's quote unquote stylized, but honestly, if you look at space, you expect like certain aspects of space to be.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why they did that, but if they had options to adjust it, I think that would be better for the user. So it's just
not a good look when a modder is producing really good implementations of features that the developer itself isn't.
Yes.
As is the case with HDR.
As with this, as with RoboCop, Special K saves the day for HDR.
Yeah, there's some other things I didn't talk about in my video that I almost a little bit regret right now. I think I don't like the UI in the game and its update rate. It's like 30 FPS for a lot of stuff. Feels really bad.
It was like that on Xbox. I mean, it was always like that. And I think it was because of Xbox, and it's only much more noticeable when you play. It's
super noticeable on PC when you do things. And I didn't even talk about it, but like now I kind of regret it because maybe it's not on the radar. Because when DF talks about something, I don't want to say we have like weight, but like it at least puts like public knowledge about it in a place that is easy to digest. You just watch 10-minute video, whatever. Sorting through all the detritus of online responses,
digital detritus,
is daunting in comparison. So.
I noticed you posted one of those examples of detritus on Twitter. Why aren't you testing FSR on the Radeon GPU because it looks better? Yeah. There's evidence that it looks better.
Yeah,
we've talked about this before, but Yeah, it does make me chuckle. I'll tell you what it is. 2 plus 2 equals 4 on an NVIDIA GPU, but 2 plus 2 equals a higher quality 4 on a Radeon GPU. That's what it's all about.
The way it's been.
It's a superior 4.
I mean, this is not like back in, I don't know, 2001 or whatever, when the anisotropic filtering wars occurred or something like that. Like these are going to usually produce, a graphics card should produce the exact same results, regardless of vendor, across a variety of systems. And when it doesn't happen, it's usually actually big news. Like the stars missing, or was it the sun missing on AMD cards in Starfield?
Yeah, that was an interesting one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I always wonder why that happens, but yeah.